Welcome back to another Giant Slayer TFT video. We're here with another top 5 composition countdown for the current meta in our newest patch 10.5. Our expert analyst will be delving in and breaking down why exactly these builds are at the top of the meta. Keep in mind that the meta is subtly shifting, and as such, some of these builds may become weaker or stronger over the course of the patch. With that said, let's jump into the top 5 builds. But before we begin, please do not forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting content to come, so be sure to follow all of our Giant Slayer TFT social media pages. Let's jump back into the video and start off with our number 5 composition on the list, Rangers. Rangers are back once again in the top 5 as they remain one of the dominant builds in the meta. Not much has really changed for them in patch 10.5, but there are a few buffs that have happened that need to be mentioned. Ezreal received a 25 damage buff to his spell damage at level 1, and Twitch got a small increase to his base attack damage, going from 65 to 70. While neither of these buffs seem that big, it certainly improves an already strong composition. Ezreal isn't often part of the late game for the Rangers, but in the mid game, he's one of the best champions to carry items. With Glacial as a strong early and mid-game trait, you're able to smoothly transition towards a late game into Ranger, Crystal, and Poison. Ashe and Twitch are still the main carries of the build, and Taric plus Braum makes for an extremely defensive frontline. Fill out the rest of the build by adding in Poison with Singed and Mundo, and look to play either Mystic or 2 more Rangers to finish out the composition at level 8. Grab Rageblade, Static Shiv, and Infinity Edge as carry items to give Twitch or Ashe, and be sure to get a Guardian Angel for Taric. Bramble Vest is also a good item for your frontline, and Morellonomicon is a must-have for Singed if you have the extra components to make it. Time to move on to our next top composition. Coming in at number 4, Berserkers. Much like Rangers, this is another build that needs no introduction as it's unchanged in 10.5. The build is still a staple of the meta as it was untouched by any of the balance changes. The core of the composition is still the same, with 6 Berserkers being the goal and Olaf as the carry. With the small buff to Ezreal and Glacial being such a powerhouse in the early and mid game, it's super easy to transition from 4 Glacial into 6 Berserker. From that point, you can play several different styles, with Poison being the most common addition to the build at level 8 by adding in Twitch and Singed. Electric is another worthwhile investment if you're able to get an Electric Lux and a Zed, as the 4-piece trait was buffed in 10.5. Lastly, you can play 6 Glacial if you find a Glacial Lux, as the trait was buffed from 350 damage for 6 Glacial up to 375. Whichever style you wish to play for Berserkers, the carry will still be Olaf, so give him items like Rapid Fire Cannon, Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, Guardian Angel, or turn him into an assassin. Other items remain the same for this build, with Locket and Zeke's being decent options, and Morellonomicon for Singed if you're playing the Poison build. Moving on to number 3, we're jumping into Shadows. After their nerf in 10.4b, it seemed like this build, specifically 6 Shadow, may have fallen out of being so dominant in the meta, but it's proven to be resilient to nerfs and stand strong as one of the best compositions. The core of their build remains the same, with Kindred, Scion, and Master Yi being the top 3 Shadows, with Malzahar, Senna, and Vigar rounding it out. Shadow Lux is still viable to go for, but it's much less likely that you're going to be able to find her instead of the Master Yi. The additional champions that you play typically with this build are usually a Mystic plus a strong frontliner, though Janna and Yasuo are great options since they provide Mystic, Cloud, and Blade Master. Inferno is another possible add-on to the build, with Annie and Amumu being some of the best to put in. Items are mostly unchanged, with Rageblade and Hand of Justice as great options for Kindred, and Guardian Angel being a must for Scion. Zephyr is another versatile item for the build, especially when placed in the front line. Outside of 6 Shadow, you can still play 6 Inferno, with Varus, Annie, Amumu, Kiana on Inferno map, and Brand all being good options. In case you do play for this transition, it can be worth it to grab a Locket as your defensive item, since Inferno wants the fight to go long enough for the burn effect to do work. Another item you can look to make work is if you find a spatula, turn Scion into an Inferno. Let's move on to the number 2 build in our top 5, Summoner Assassin. Essentially, this is considered a Zir carry, as he's the most important champion for the build. Yorick is also a key unit to play, and you can round out the rest of the build with Kha'Zix, Kiana, Zed, Karma, and Soraka. Leona, Amumu, Taric, and Malphite are all viable to be played as additional frontline, though defensive items will be going on to Yorick. Those items will be Guardian Angel, Bramble Vest, Redemption, or Dragon's Claw. Azir will be given Rageblade highlighted as his core item, with Hand of Justice, Jeweled Gauntlet, Guardian Angel, and Shojin being decent secondary item choices. It's important to keep in mind that this build does not need to have either Summoner or Assassin trait to be viable. The key to playing it is finding Azir 2 in the early game, generally around level 6 and 7, and let him do work to carry you towards the late game. It is a versatile composition that Kha'Zix, Azir, and Zed can all three be viable carry options, but Azir is definitely the most consistent. In the late game, if you do manage to get a Zed 2-starred, you can try to stack items like Redemption, Bramble Vest, and Guardian Angel on him, with a light item being one of the best uses of a spatula. Keep in mind that this build is great for getting top 4s or top 3s, but without a Zed 2 or an Azir 3, it will struggle to get in the top 2, especially as it's soft countered by builds like 6 Shadow and 6 Berserker. You've been waiting for it. Coming in at number 1 on our list here is Predators. Predators have fallen in and out of the meta over the course of Set 2's history, but in 10.5, they are proving to be quite strong when the right criteria is met. It's not an easy build to force every game, as it's hard to play when other players are contesting it. The build also works best when you have at least Kog'Maw 2 prior to stage 3-1, and you will definitely want to be on 50 gold by that stage as well. Hyper rolling is currently the best style of play for this build, though it isn't completely necessary. That said, it is incredibly strong to hyper roll for, as Kog'Maw 3 with 1 or 2 Ludens will hard carry the mid game. Rek'Sai 3 also got a substantial buff in 10.5, with her ultimate damage going from 850 to 1000. That damage is true damage, so it is a hefty increase. With those two, you also want to play Skarner, Ashe, Nocturne, and add in Poison with Twitch or Mundo and Singed. This will make the final build at level 7 be 3 Predator, 2 Crystal, 2 Steel, and 3 Poison. From there, you can add in any champions you want at level 8 and 9, though Taric is a great option, as is Lux with either Crystal, Steel, or Cloud as her element. As mentioned, Luden is a must-have for Kog'Maw. Skarner and Rek'Sai can also be given defensive items like Guardian Angel and Bramble Vest, and Singed will still definitely want his book with the Morellonomicon. Lastly, for Kog'Maw, you will want a defensive item like Guardian Angel being the best, though Quicksilver is also a great option to prevent him from being CC'd. Okay, folks, that is it for our top 5 compositions in 10.5. The last few metas have been absolutely fantastic for Set 2, with so many viable builds to play. There are a few we didn't mention on this list, so let's dive into them briefly with our honorable mentions. The 2 builds in this section are great builds for the right situation, but they are held back because of one really important reason. The reason is that they are very high roll dependent. High rolling means getting lucky to get either hard to find legendary champions or getting specific items such as a spatula. Because of that high dependency on luck, it makes these builds incredibly hard to be consistent. First up is a build that became quite popular at the end of 10.4 and remains so in 10.5, and that's Electric Warden. It can also be referred to as the Zed carry or the Piba build, as he was the player in North America that popularized it at the end of 10.4. This is the build that Piba played almost every single game. The core of this build consists of several legendary champions, hence why it's so high roll dependent. Zed, Singed, Taric, and Nami are all sought after this build, with Ornn, Volibear, Karma, and Leona being the supporting units. Don't get too hung up on the exact champions and trains to look at, as the most important aspect is getting Zed 2 with Electric and a good frontline. Commonly, this build is played with Electric, Warden, and Glacial being the early and mid game traits to go for, and you will want to get to level 8 as quickly as you can to find that Zed. Once you find the Zed, you will transfer items to him from an item carry, usually a frontline champion like Nasus, and try to hit Zed 2 for your win condition. Items to give Zed are Bramble Vest, Redemption, Guardian Angel, or Warmog's Armor. The most important thing to keep in mind for this build is it's not going to work every game because it's so reliant on finding 2-star legendary champions. Some games it's going to go well and you'll pull off a win while being at 20 health, and other games you're finding yourself a quick route to 8th place. For the next honorable mention, we have Ocean Mage. It's a build we've seen played over and over again in Set 2, but it's just not consistent enough to get in the top 5 in the current meta. While you don't need a spatula to play this build, it is the most consistent way to get a top 4. If you do find a spatula, you can give the Mage Cap to Malphite, and from there play 6 Mage for Ocean. The other downside of this build is Malphite is such an important champion champion for it, and he's often highly contested. Plus, you do want a brand 2 as your main carry, and you want to be level 8 to fit in all the necessary traits and champions. Besides a mage cap, it is useful to have a tier item like Saris for your brand, and at least one strong magic damage carry item like Death Cap or Jeweled Gauntlet. For a third item, you can play a defensive one like Guardian Angel. Morellonomicon is also quite useful in this build and can go on Brand, Malphite, or even Nami. Syndra can be a great early and mid-game item carry for this build if you can get her 2-starred. Lastly, for this build, if you're unable to find a mage cap or can't hit brand 2, it's still a viable option to pivot into Ocean with Lux carry. The perfect composition will have an Ocean Lux for 6 mage, 6 Ocean, but outside of that, it can be okay to transfer items over to any Lux you can find and make her the carry. Keep in mind that this will struggle against any build that uses Crystal. Giving Lux a mage cap is not a bad idea either if you're able to find it, though Malphite is definitely the preferable champion to give it to. That is all for our top 5 compositions video for today, folks. We hope you're out there enjoying this last patch for set 2, as set 3 is right around the corner. Are there any builds not mentioned here that you're climbing with? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you all in the next Giant Slayer TFT video.